From the creators of the original Cheat Sheet Rankings, this is the Fantasy Index Podcast. Brought to you by Fantasy Index, the original and best since 1987. Now your hosts, Luke Wilson and Colt Williams.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the Fantasy Playoffs season of the Fantasy Index Podcast. Colt Williams with me, as always, Luke Wilson. Colt, status report. Where do we stand? Standing on the precipice of the 2024 Fantasy Playoffs.
Yeah, so in 7 leagues, seven important leagues to me. It made the playoffs in 6. And the last one, man, it was a barn burner. It was one where I needed one team in front of me to lose, another team in front of me to lose, me to win, and outscore both of those teams in points for. And yeah, It came down to Brendan Aubrey. I needed 9 points from him. He kicks that 47-yarder. I get exactly 9 points. I'm watching the rest of the fourth quarter. I'm like, please don't kick a kick. We were talking about it just before it started. It was 2020, and I'm like, oh, if they go for a game winner and he misses it, I lose a point. I lose.
Oh no!
I needed exactly 9 points. I won, and then I beat him in points for by 0.78. So Kyle, you're listening. I'm sorry. It's brutal season. I definitely deserve to be in there. I have the most points against me in the league by far. Like, other playoff teams have 300 less points on the season against them, and I'm just like, dude, I deserve to be here. Like, it's been brutal. Everybody has their best matchups. How about yourself? How'd your matchups go?
Mostly got in. Of course, the one that's gonna haunt me is the main redraft league where, you know, the other guy was out of it. Fab dumped Guerendo, and he had Jordan Addison going, and yeah, it was never going to happen. Similar story. Scored the right number of points, more or less. I think I finished in third in scoring, but yeah, I think when you have a fantasy podcast, you can go ahead and add about 150 to 200 extra points scored against you every season, pretty much indefinitely. You get everyone's A game. Hopefully, if you're listening out there in your one league, your main leagues, you're not playing this week. Hopefully, a season with us has delivered you to that hallowed 11-3 or 10-4 grounds where you can just sit back, kick your feet up, eat some popcorn, watch everybody else gouge each other's eyes out. But if you do need to win this week and you are playing, we're going to take you through the matchups, game by game, piece by piece, unpack who we like, who we're iffy on, and who we don't like, starting with Thursday night football, sir, shall we?
Yes, sir. Yeah, Thursday night football. Got a good one here. We got Rams traveling to San Francisco, play the 49ers. We got some question marks around in this one. Stafford, I think you could probably play him. He's probably about a top 15 quarterback here. He's been good lately, and that's, he's not turning the ball over. Good amount of touchdowns. Puka, firing off. Kupp firing off. Those guys, they're obviously in play. Other side of the ball, Brock Purdy, I think you could fire him up. He had that one bad game. I think it was Buffalo. I think that was a snow game. That one was really, really bad. But you throw that out, he's been the same old Brock Purdy he's always been. And yeah, Kyron Williams, you're firing him up. Isaac Guerendo, that's where we need to pause for just a second. He was amazing, just as you mentioned. Some people fab dumped for him, threw him in there, basically got Christian McCaffrey style production.
Right. If
he's active, I feel like you have to start him, regardless of the injury. Like, it's the short week, so practice reports aren't going to be as clear. Like, we're going to get limited practices. It's going to be all the way up to the game time.
And Shanahan loves him some 3D chess. He's going to obfuscate as far as he can before he gets in trouble with the league. So there is that too.
Yeah, so Isaac Guerendo, just a little heat check on him. Are you playing him if he's active and he's going to be banged up, or like Najee versus Philadelphia?
Oh,
that's a tough matchup.
Right to the rough stuff. If he's healthy, yeah, I gotta go Guerendo. I believe in the system too much, and the Steelers have no Pickens. We'll get to all that. But yeah, Najee's been more feasting on opportunistic matchups, and the Eagles are not that.
They are not. Rico Dowdle versus the Panthers.
Ooh, that's okay.
Because I like Dowdle a lot. I think they're probably safer with Dowdle if I had to guess.
I'll answer that when we get to Cowboys Panthers, because I'm going to need to ruminate ruminate a minute on that one. That's tough.
And if for whatever reason Guerendo doesn't play, do you have the stones to fire off Patrick Taylor, assuming he's the guy? That's the scary part too. It could be, is he a Bandicanda or, I don't think it is. I think it's Patrick Taylor. We've never seen him in a full-time role, whether it was in Green Bay or here in the 49ers, but I just trust whoever they thrust into the starting role, they'll be the guy.
I've been joking. You've seen the Twitter meme of the guy standing at the airport Hertz counter anytime there's any speculation about like a trade, like, saw Cooper Kupp at the airport, and it's a picture of a guy that's clearly not Cooper Kupp.
Which Reds.
Which
Yes.
Reds. It says Hertz Boston, and like, saw Kupp at the Pittsburgh airport. So if we see any news about Tevin Coleman on Twitter in the next 12 hours, I'm going to be, or Matt Breida, some of Shanny's old pals from way back. I don't think that's going to happen. No, I don't want to start any panic tweeting or anything about, I heard Tevin Coleman. No, I'm just joking. But if Guerendo can't go, Abanikanda will be active, obviously. But I think it's going to be a lot of Taylor. I think, the Abanikanda's only been in town like 6 days, 7 days. So, yeah, it would be shocking to see him get more than, change of pace, breather touches. I'd start Taylor, I guess. I mean,
yeah,
low flex 2 type play. Yeah, it just depends.
Exactly what I'm saying. Like that's where I am. Like I'm really confident with Guerendo if he goes in like certainly a top 20 play, maybe top 15, but we've seen his upside. And then if it's Taylor, you could start him. He's probably going to be the starter. You're hoping he finds the end zone. And it's closer to a flex if it's him. Just they're different players. We haven't really seen him ever produce or anything like that.
Sunday was the second start of Isaac Guerendo's career at running back in his life. Not in the pros, not since college, in his life. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's crazy what they produced there. Juwan Jennings, last time we saw these guys match up, 11 for 175 and 3. So you're not expecting that, but he is certainly a solid wide receiver 2 here. He's just been a godsend for you if you found him. I'd start him over Debo. Debo is a guy, I feel like you can't start him. You're starting him for a name. He's complaining about not getting the ball. He's getting the ball, limited fashion still, but wide receiver 50 on the season. Like, it has been horrible for him. One guy, we don't have a waiver show, but one guy that was picked up here in waivers, Adam Thielen. I would play Adam Thielen over Debo. They're at home playing the Cowboys. Like that's where I'm going. I don't really see the greasy wheel, the squeaky wheel getting the grease here or getting the ball more in this situation. Like Debo scares me too much.
It's more of a greasy wheel where it can't squeak because it's so greasy. No.
Yeah.
The thing with that is like, at the end of the day, like we do heap a lot of like our own animus, our own frustration on players, and Debo's definitely suffering from that perception wise right now. He's not been good. The Niners have struggled from injuries and other reasons as well. He is eventually going to explode for 120 and 2 touchdowns. Like I believe that he's got one more of those in him this season as long as he really is healthy-ish.
Yeah.
But like, do you really want to go down with the ship here in the playoffs? I'd rather I'd rather him do it to me on the bench and I win this round than he gives me the 2-point day and I go down because I believed in Debo 1 week too long.
Over the past month, what do you think the max receiving yards Debo's had over the past month, over the past 4 games? We'll say that.
His single game receiving high?
Yeah, single game receiving high over the past month.
60 yards.
22.
Oh, wow.
22, 21, 20, 22.
I mean, the offense is just kind of like the Dolphins. The offense, Shanahan is very good at what he does. The offense can change fundamentally very quickly, and it has.
They can.
So, yeah, I mean, it's the damnedest thing. Juwan Jennings, I mean, he's this year's Puka Nacua. He's not Puka, but he's the closest thing we've had to that as far as like a waiver wire hero. So, yeah, incredible.
But I see what you're saying with Debo. Like, you kind of have to go with the name. I'm not chasing Rome Odunze's 2 touchdowns or something like that. I'm playing Debo in that situation, even though that's against Minnesota. Like, I expect that one to be a little bit of a shootout. Yeah. The over-under wouldn't suggest it, but this is a high over-under, 49.5. They're expecting a lot of points. So Debo, in that type of situation, I'll play him. But, yeah, it's scary. And then Kittle, obviously, you're starting him. He's the top 3 tight end there on the week. let's move on to this next one.
I saw somebody in one of my leagues still has Tyler Higbee on the bench. What are you? And they just made an ad drop. They can't even. It's not even like they're just they're down. Their car's in a ditch somewhere and they're waiting for help. They can't get to their phone. They're alive and they've got Higbee on the bench. Like,
this is redraft.
What? It's redraft. I was like, what? Oh. Wait, hold on. What am I? Did something happen? Did I miss a tweet? What is this? No, I didn't. Oh my God. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, we saw Tyler Higbee at the airport. That's me.
Yeah, on the way to Birmingham to play for the UFL Birmingham Stallions. All right, on to our first Sunday game of Week 15, or one of the early games. Baltimore at the Giants. Yeah, this should be a close one. This is going to be a real barn burner. Ravens open as 14.5-point road favorites. It does not get much worse than that, folks. Over under at 43. Yeah, I could see the Ravens scoring 40. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson, top overall play of the week. I mean, in terms of floor and ceiling, it doesn't get any more bulletproof than that. Tommy DeVito is back. It's Cutlets time. The DeVito tweets are flowing again. Our DeVito meme supply is back in stock. There we go. You got to have he hates it too. That's why it's funny. So. Not that Drew Lock was exactly a boon to any of the Giants' skill position players, but I don't take DeVito's reinsertion as good news for Neighbors or anybody. We'll get to that in a minute. Derrick Henry's the top overall play of the week at running back. The Ravens, top QB, top running back. That's just the way it is when you get the Giants right now. Tyrone Tracy, for me, I'm going to – and I thought about this. I got one for you in a minute. I thought about this long and hard. I still think he's a top 25 running back this week in full PPR. I had a tough one asked on him yesterday in the FI Discord. Tracy at home for the Ravens or Swift at Minnesota on Monday night, and I really struggled with that one. I really did. I ultimately said, I kind of hedged and said, if it's full PPR, go with Tracy, and left it implied that if it's not, well, do what you want to do, I guess. But like in full PPR, the game script is just going to dictate so much time of the game is going to be spent with the Ravens just letting the Giants get whatever they want underneath just to keep the clock rolling and get the heck out of there already and go back home. So that could be advantageous for like Tyrone Tracy, maybe like Wandale. Yeah. What do you think? Like Tracy versus DeAndre Swift, Tracy versus, oh man, I'm blanking. Isaiah Pacheco, for example.
They're playing the Browns.
Pacheco's at the Browns. Yep.
Yeah. All those four group of guys, Swift, Tracy, Najee, and Pacheco, they're all in the same group category for me. Of if Pacheco's probably at the highest part of that, but the rest of them, it's like guys who, if they have a good matchup, it should be really good for them. But these are all in bad matchups. Ravens, you got the Browns and the one like
the Browns just got gashed by Harris didn't gash him, but the week before Jaleel McLaughlin was kind of getting whatever he wanted in fits and starts.
Philadelphia and Vikings, like these are really tough ones. I do lean to Tracy as well, coming off 10 targets. Like that's nothing to scoff at. Like we aren't expecting. What do you have? It had 16 carries. Like I'd probably expect 12 carries, but another probably 6 to 8 targets. In a game, they're certainly going to be down. I mean, 14.5 points for the favorites for the Ravens. So, yeah, we would expect a lot of checkdowns for him.
Brian Dabble has listed his townhouse or whatever he has, condo, on Zillow for sure.
Yeah.
So running out the rest of Ravens Giants players, Zay Flowers, I'm gonna say like top 20ish. He opened the season really hot, and I think he's still kind of trading on that hot start he had to the season. He's got one top 15 day in half PPR scoring since week 6. Plus with the game script, he could do a lot of damage in the first quarter, but he kind of has to, or they're just gonna take the air out of the football. Malik Neighbors, I can't give him better than like top 24 billing here. The targets do just keep coming, but he hasn't scored a touchdown. Colt, get this. When do you think Malik Neighbors last scored a touchdown in the NFL?
Yeah, I think it's week 3, right?
Since week 3, this man has not gotten in the end zone, and he got 2 touchdowns that day.
Yeah.
His last week with a top 25 finish was week 4. I mean, again, kind of like with Flowers, still trading on what he did in September. So, DeVito, that's not good news. Yeah, he could see 16 targets. with DeVito, that could be 5 receptions. I mean, it's very possible. So
yeah, we wouldn't expect another touchdown. I mean, I have to imagine DeVito's over/under on his touchdowns is probably 0.5.
It'd have to be a busted play. Yeah, because I mean, Neighbors is going to have priority attention, and he's Tommy DeVito. Sorry.
But yeah, living off that early hype. I like Zay Flowers a little bit more. He's been a higher floor, but hasn't had those real big boom weeks in a while. But just like Jaden Reed or Malik Neighbors, like started off extremely hot, they can disappear at times.
Yep.
Neighbors' floor isn't as high as we really want it to be. He's getting those targets, but again, they're Tommy DeVito targets. We want him to find the end zone, and with Tommy DeVito at the helm, it may be tough.
Yeah. Wan'Dale Robinson is a PPR desperation option if you're in like 14 team or like really deep 12 team lineup situation. Did see 11 targets last week. Again, game script could dictate a lot of cheap check down, 4 or 5 yard chucks for DeVito as the Giants try to play NFL caliber football. So that could be beneficial for Wan'Dale, but again, it's gotta be full PPR. Mark Andrews, obvious must start, especially in standard scoring. He leads all tight ends in touchdowns since week 5 of the NFL season. He's got 7. Nobody else has more than 5. So you don't even set it and forget it, obviously. Ravens DST is probably one of the most popular plays of the week, if not the most, and rightfully so. I mean, they could get you 30 points in some scoring this week.
Yeah, and they were widely available in a lot of my leagues where I play defenses because they've had kind of bad matchups and just haven't been that great of a defense. But when the opportunity presents itself, you play them against Tommy DeVito if you can, or you play the Commanders defense against this next stack of quarterbacks. We got the Commanders. They're traveling to New Orleans to play the Saints. 43.5 point over under with the Commanders minus 7.5. So, on the road favorites here. Jaden Daniels, he's a lock for a top 5.
7.5 almost feels disrespectful to the Commanders, honestly.
It does, but they kind of struggled. Who was it they played last week? They struggled.
They were on bye, but they killed the Titans before that, and then they struggled with like the Cowboys and a couple other teams.
It was there were recent games where they're going into the half like 3-6 or 3-3, right. And so they've kind of slowed down a lot. Again, another team that started hot. But Jaden Daniels, he's in play. Brian Robinson, I think he's a top 15 back. McLaurin, he's top 10. Noah Brown, he's out. So just a little bit more juice there for Scary Terry. Zach Ertz, and this is all on the Commander side of the ball because I don't really think outside of Alvin Kamara, who are you starting? You got to change a quarterback. Derek Carr's not going to be there. You got Jake Haener or Spencer Rattler. They haven't even decided who the quarterback's going to be. Spencer Rattler, I don't know if you remember his college tape, but he was basically the tank for Trevor, the tank for Tua. Like it was tank for Rattler at one point.
Oh, I remember.
And then he disappeared.
He was practically a 6-star recruit. I mean, everybody was about Rattler, and then it got away from him. Then Caleb
got away from him. Which kind of stinks. That car injury really does because I felt like MVS was somebody who could be a dart throw, probably still a dart throw, but extremely scary. I have less faith in these two quarterbacks than I do in Tommy DeVito. But Juwan Johnson, he was looking good before Carr's injury, and with everybody banged up, I was really interested. But now I have no faith in any of those guys.
I think it'll be Haener. Is it Haener or Haener? I've heard it both ways. I think it's going to be that guy. Just kind of tea leaf reading. It could absolutely be Rattler. I mean, it just depends on what the Saints want to do here. Do they want to look at the future, or do they want respectability now? It's pretty much Kamara. I would start Juwan Johnson. I know, even with the QB change, again, at a certain point, they're going to attempt a forward pass. A few of them, and somebody has to be on the other end. They have nobody else. So Juwan's a fine floor play because he's got to see 6 targets. He's gotta. But it gets. I mean, it's strictly like bio with a biohazard symbol on the side of the barrel. Everybody else has it on them in the Saints uniform.
Yeah, it's worth noting. Rattlesnake. He did start 2 games earlier this season, so it's So
says he learned a lot. He does say he learned a lot.
Yeah, he understands it now.
As I should hope you learned. If you didn't learn anything your first 2 NFL games, that'd be very, very concerning.
Yeah, exactly. And then again, we fire up the Commanders' defense. I think that's a huge one. Whoever they throw in there at quarterback, I'm confident in that.
Lattimore's return too.
Yeah,
and I think it's his first game as a Commander too.
I think it's his first game. Yeah, exactly. So this is perfect time for him to get a little pick 6. Mm-hmm. If nothing else, a pick. So you've got a guaranteed pick locked in for the
Saints
Commanders.
head coach might tell the quarterback, "Hey, look, you got to throw Lattimore one. We owe him. He's a proud son of New Orleans."
Yeah, I like that.
All right, on to Chiefs Browns, another game that could get out of hand quickly. But then again, the Chiefs could play, a little league baseball team and only beat them by 2. So let's give the Chiefs their due. They don't beat anybody into paste. Mahomes, I'm just gonna say top 15 because that's where he's been pretty much all season. Chiefs offense, his engine is running, but the whole thing is in neutral. They are not really trying to play their best football right now because they just feel that they don't need to, and they're right. They're 11-1, 12-1, so it's hard to fault them. Winston, man, the Chiefs defense is not as good as it was in 2023, but it feels like the carriage is turning back into the pumpkin now. There was talk already after the Steelers game, the way that game ended with Winston, multiple turnovers, the pick six, and obviously Kadarius Toney had committed some cardinal sins at the end of that game as well. Oh, Kadarius, you keep giving us these treasured memories. There's already been talk like, okay, this has been fun, but at what point do we maybe take a look at Dorian Thompson-Robinson? They say they're not going to do it this week, and I believe them, but yeah, this could be it for the Winston era in Cleveland. I don't think he's going to get benched, but it could be ugly. I don't want any part of it. Nick Chubb, I'm going to say like top 30. This gets into scoring format. Like if you're in standard, Chubb is a much more viable play because you don't care about receptions. He can get you 40 rushing yards. That would not blow me away at all. It's the touchdown. He needs to get a touchdown, preferably 2, or he's going to hurt you. And in standard, you're kind of more expecting that anyway. Like the touchdown is the thing. Jerome Ford, I'm going to say feels like a top 30-ish play too, but skewing more toward full PPR. So you kind of get standard scoring with the one, full PPR with the other. Isaiah Pacheco, I'm going to say is top 24. Like when I heard what the nature of the injury was, and then they finally announced, he's coming back a little bit ahead of schedule, that right away was like, okay, he's going to come back. He's going to come back, but they're going to really ease him in for the stretch run. He has not logged 50% of the snaps in either of his games yet. And it's the Browns. Like, they're going to control this game, probably, you have to think. And the Chiefs just don't care about beating the Browns by 20. That doesn't mean anything to them. They want to beat the Browns by 3 and keep everybody healthy. That's it.
They don't want to beat anybody by 20.
No, they can play East Carolina, and it would be 19-17 final, walk-off field goal.
It was such the doink and then in. It baffles me that you can hit a football against a goalpost and it go in that way. Like
the circles that I swim in when it comes to fantasy football, you can't even know the amount of Chiefs Illuminati conspiracy theorist noise that I am subjected to in a given week, especially during the season. And you know what I say? I say, okay, come on. It's ridiculous. There's no way the NFL can have a running conspiracy to make sure that the Chiefs go back to the Super Bowl. And then crap like that happens. And the volume goes to 11 on all of the tinfoil hat guys. Like, NFL, WWE, NFL, WWE. Like,
yeah.
God, Chiefs, would you just be normal, please? Anyway.
Yeah, it's tough to watch. It's I as a Patriots fan, I've seen a lot of this over the years, but it feels like not to this degree. Like cheating scandals, absolutely, but this one is like, no, there's no doubt about that. Everybody's already said if you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Andy Reid, could you please just film another team's practices or something? Be normal, like be boring. But congrats to your boy Belichick, by the way, going North Carolina.
UNC?
Big doings. Big doings.
He ain't gonna get covered in mayonnaise.
Does he have lice? All right. Anyway, Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver, Cleveland Browns, having quite the little moment the last couple weeks. I'm gonna say he's still top 16 because just look at the run that he's on. But again, with concerns about Jameis Winston's grip on the starting job quickly beginning to pipe up, I would understand people kind of going for the exit a little bit and getting a little skittish about do I trust Judy here? Can I still trust him? I say you can. The Chiefs secondary has not been anything special. And Jameis he's got a license to chuck. Jameis he's not gonna stop being Jameis. That one is one thing we know. He's gonna die with his boots on. He's gonna die chucking touchdowns and picks. That's it. So Judy is a top 16 play for me. I'm thinking like 691, something in that range seems totally plausible. Cedric Tillman, top 30 if he goes. He's been out for a couple weeks in the concussion protocol. Looks like he should be able to go this week. But with what Judy's doing, David Njoku's grew up on the target share, it feels like a situation where talent is maybe exceeding opportunity or the need for said talent right now. So he's kind of the floor is real dicey for me. Xavier Worthy, I can't condone it. I'm going to say like top 35-ish type play. Kind of like with Chubb, like it's a best ball play where you're chasing, like you want him to hit that home run. He does have the right matchup for it. I'll give him that. The Browns defense, you can splash, obviously, from what we've seen the last couple of weeks. So
Worthy seems like a guy, if you snuck into the playoffs, you're the 6th seed or whatever it is, and you had a ton of injuries just come up on you. You have Brees Hall injury or CMC or Guerendo, whatever it was, and you're 20-point underdog, throw Worthy in there. Like if you already think you're going to lose, throw him in there.
Sure.
Like that's the perfect player to try to get you right back into the matchup.
Especially in this matchup, where the Browns, they don't have a lot to play for. They've shown us a penchant for getting burned on big plays in the last couple weeks. I totally agree. Like that's the type of play where if you're really in a bind, you were riding the Jaden Reed train. You were riding. You have Deebo Samuel. You had Brandon Ayuk. You've been just plugging holes at wide receiver all season. Worthy's a great one to throw out there, and if it works, you're like, yes, I'm that meme from The Boys where he's looking around like, I meant to do that. So Travis Kelce, he's top 5, same as it ever was. David Njoku has a cranky hamstring. Okay, so keep an eye on this. He picked up a hamstring in the Steelers game. Did not practice today. It sounds like he should be fine, and it's just kind of, there's a lot of guys, Evan Ingram and a bunch of other guys missed practices today. It doesn't really mean anything. Mike Williams missed practice for literally no reason. Veteran rest day. So it's kind of more that, but anytime anyone says hamstring, obviously you're going to keep an eye on it. So he's a top 8 play if he goes. 79 targets in his last 7 games. That is galactic. That is to the moon. He doesn't catch but half of them, crazy. But still, it's amazing. And then Chiefs DST, Chiefs DST, Chiefs DST, Chiefs DST.
Yeah, start them up. I think absolutely. There's no problem with that. You're always hoping for a pick 6 when Jameson's out there. Even if it goes to DTR, if it goes in like next week or something like that, like I'd still be firing up whoever it is. Maybe even more so. I'm not a big DTR fan. Was hopeful, but
he's probably not going to pan out. He's got a hell of an arm, but
yeah. Let's move on. We're going to go Miami Dolphins traveling to Houston to play the Texans. 47-point over-under. Basically a pick 'em. Texans are favored by 3 at home. You got Tua. He has been on fire this past 4 or 5 games. Like he's been absolutely on fire. I saw one. It was. Do I start Tua against the Texans or do I start Hurts? And the Hurts was against Pittsburgh, and I'm like, ooh, that's awful. Like that's a horrible. We'll talk about Hurts a little bit more in his matchup, but that one was a really, really tough question. I'm gonna lean Hurts still, and especially in 4-point, because that rushing upside. But yeah, it's been pretty bad for Hurts.
Somebody asked me that exact question, and we had to stop and unpack it. We did still land with Hurts, but it's close. What it tells you is that Tua has entered the Hurts stratosphere at the right time in the season. So that's everything.
Yeah, and Hurts is certainly more safer, in my opinion. Just as his floor, it's just so much higher, and his ceiling should be higher. Again, we'll talk about Hurts a little bit more in his game because we're going to talk about AJ Brown, all the effective pieces. But CJ Stroud, this is not a guy. He's a big name, very much a Baker Mayfield-esque second year season where coming out you're like, oh, this guy was really, really good.
Yeah.
All right, but we all knew his draft capital. He was like in Dynasty, he was a quarterback 1 or 2 coming off the board. Even a redraft, like the quarterback 4, 5, 6, something like that. And we're like, 6, dude, if you don't run the ball, like you need to throw 4,500 yards and 30 plus touchdowns. And he's not on pace for any of that. And he's turning the ball over more than he ever has. yeah, still a good quarterback, and it's not a great matchup either. So, yeah, I'm staying away from CJ Stroud at all cost. Achane, Mixon, both those guys are locked into your lineups. They're going to be top options. Tyreek Hill, yeah, keep him going. Nico Collins, absolutely. Waddle has shown a little bit more life. As soon as I dropped him in one of my leagues, it was when he bust for his blew up for his big, whatever it was, 25 point game, and has kind of actually been alive here recently. He reminds me a little bit of Jordan Addison, not necessarily with the 3 touchdowns, but if he gets a touchdown, he has the potential to have a really big game, big plays, stuff like that. He's more of a wide receiver 3 for me. Certainly not a solid wide receiver 2 or anything like that. But I want a little heat check for you on Waddle. Let's go Waddle or Brian Thomas Jr. at home versus the Jets.
Waddle. Yeah.
Okay.
Waddle
or Adam Thielen at home versus the Cowboys.
Waddle. The Cowboys are tougher on the road than people seem to generally remember, and the defense has shown up more than I expected the last couple of weeks. I'm going to say Waddle. Thielen's an old man. Come on. Give me the upside.
And then I think we're both going to pick Zay Flowers on this one, Waddle or Zay Flowers.
I'm going to say Waddle. Waddle. Yep.
I like Zay Flowers a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I agree with the first two. I do like Waddle in both those matchups, but it gives you a little bit of a testament, because if it was about 3-4 weeks ago, you'd be saying, oh, all of those guys over Waddle. He's been doing absolutely nothing, even with Tua back. But Tua has been playing better here in December, which, colder months, you wouldn't really expect that.
The Dolphins were slower to do it, and it probably killed their season, but kind of like the Niners, ultimately they started to really reinvent themselves, change the way that they do business. Mm-hmm. They're a yards after catch operation now, pretty exclusively right now. They're not throwing the long ball with any, except to facilitate the short game and keep defenses from crashing down. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then take Dell. I feel like you can't start him. He's wide receiver 53 on the season. Failed to get 9 half PPR fantasy points over the past month. The past 4 games, like he's just been dead. Can he go out there and get 4 for 110? Sure. Like I think he could do it, but
not this
he just hasn't been involved. He hasn't been involved whatsoever. Yeah, it's been bad. And then if you had Jonnu Smith, if you watched all of that Miami game or just were scoreboard watching on your phone, you saw 0 fantasy points at the end of regulation.
Yeah.
I started him. I'm like, are you kidding me? What's going on here? Give you a 0 in regulation, then he was the person who won the game for him. 3 for 44 to touchdown and OT. Saved all those points just for right at the end. I'm going to take this as like a one-off, because he's been on fire. He had 1 down game, even though it ended up being a good game with OT. You still got to count those points. So yeah, Jonnu's still in my lineup, top 8 option for me.
Yeah, I can't really account for that one. That was bad. That scared me real bad in some games where I had to have it. So no, I won't be forgetting that one. But yeah, I mean the Jonnu's star has risen as the Dolphins offense has trended back toward not the heights of 2022, but gotten off the canvas, gotten off of the mat. So yeah, I got my faith has got to stay in him. He's Jonnu. He is eternal. He's the greatest Patriot in franchise history. So you talking about something super spicy, dropping Jaylen Waddle in redraft. Oh my God. That's a lot of people would say. I know he's been rough, but geez.
He had like 1 double-digit game all season.
It's been bad. No one's arguing that. But not that I'm happy that CMC got re-injured, but now me dropping him in 10-team, it just looks like I knew the future instead of being a total hack, which is better.
Yeah, and that's where it goes. We were talking about a trade. I like to look back at it right at the end of the season, like what was my best trade, what was my worst trade, whether it was dynasty or redraft, and kind of like just reminisce and see what it was and try to adapt and be better for next year or next season. And one was Chuba Hubbard for CMC. After CMC's very first game back, and it was Chuba's been great for the whole season. Jonathan Brooks was coming back in. One guy was like, "Oh, CMC didn't play the whole allotment of snaps." It was a very like first year player type of move. And now it looks great again with like you're dropping CMC. Like that's why you do not veto trades whatsoever. There are dumb trades. That was a bad trade. CMC is the better side of that trade. but it turns out it wasn't. So yeah, another reason why you just never veto trades unless it's absolutely collusion or just someone really not caring or not knowing better than.
Yeah, it's heartbreak city for the Brooks kid, but man, did Chuba Hubbard's dynasty arrow turn around in a heartbeat? My gosh, I mean,
my goodness, yeah,
he's a top 12 running back in dynasty now. All right, Anyway, moving on to what do we got next on the docket here? We have Bengals at Titans, the not quite the South, but not quite the North either bowl, because Nashville and Cincinnati are relatively short drives from one another. Anyway, Tony Pollard is a DNP Wednesday, but like we mentioned, it's veteran maintenance. They rode him pretty hard last week, so they want to give him a breather. Joe Burrow, Bengals quarterback, top 3 play. Will Levis, top 33. I will say he cracks the top 33 quarterbacks this week. I in a deeper league or in a super flex, I know it was bad last week, and like Will Levis is running out of 1-ups at breakneck speed. But against the Bengals, I don't hate it. I don't love it because obviously I don't love it. He hasn't done the thing yet. He's running out of time. But I don't hate it. Chase Brown, he's a top 8 play rest of the season until he gets hurt. He's rolling. Tony Pollard, I'll say top 16. He's kind of been a little bit better in reality than his RB17 season rank in fantasy would suggest. But when he's only cracked the top 10 in fantasy points for the position once all year, it's tough to push him higher than saying he's like a top 16 type play. He's expected to carry the mail, but his touches have been all over the place the last 5 weeks. He's at 23, 12, 27, 11, 13, looking back at his last 5 games. So first they said we're going to try to throttle him down. Now they're clearly throttling him back up. We don't really know what's going to happen there. Jamar is the top wide receiver play every week until further notice, until the end of time. T. Higgins is the top. I have no idea, but I'm sick of it. 3 top 8s, 3 times outside the top 40. Snip, snap, snip, snap. I'm sick of the back and forth. I want off this ride. T, just go be T. Higgins, darn you.
Yeah, and I'll say, I don't know if you saw the interviews or the Twitter hype or anything like that. I really should start calling it X now, but it was Burrow talking about T. Higgins, just basically saying like, hey, he's going to be here next year, indirectly. Like he's the Aaron Rodgers, he's the quarterback, he is the GM of the team, and saying, hey, I want this guy, I need this guy. It makes Jamar better, it makes Burrow better. He's taking defense, has big plays, stretches across the goal line. Like he is a really good wide receiver.
For sure.
It just depends if they're going to franchise tag him again or not, or if they're going to give him a big bag of money. They have to pay Jamar Chase too, so
that's the
thing. And they have holes. They have holes in a lot of places. So I'd love to see him back, but I thought it was noteworthy for people who have T. Higgins out in leagues like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of speculation. Is T. Higgins going to Carolina? Could he possibly be going to your New England Patriots when March rolls around?
Yeah.
It would kind of be foolish for the Bengals to just let him walk for nothing, but if you franchise tag him, that's a whole can of worms in and of itself. Can they? I mean, is it logistically realistic to pay him and Jamar? We know they have to pay Jamar. They were stupid to not pay Jamar this year. Now they're going to have to pay him out the nose next year. I think that's Burrow kind of being a good soldier and trying to be a leader and keep the clubhouse together kind of a thing. I don't know how realistic it is, especially, I mean, sorry, the Brown family that owns the Bengals are famously one of the cheapest ownership groups in the NFL. So there's also that factor. All right, on to another potential game of the week matchup here. New York Jets at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jets open as 3-point favorites with an over-under of 40.5. Sounds about right. You take this one away. It looks like you're less than bullish on the quarterbacks.
I'm a little less than bullish on the quarterbacks. I would start Aaron Rodgers over Will Levis.
Oh, it's bullish, all right. Big pile of bullish.
And Spencer Rattler, but we're getting close to the end of the list of quarterbacks that I would start over them. It's a great matchup. Jags are bad at everything on defense, so and quite frankly, bad on offense too. So yeah, I mean, it's really hard to. Brian Thomas is who you want on the Jags. Let's talk about the Jags just for a moment. I think he's a high-end wide receiver 3, always has that big game potential as far as taking one to the house. Big play Brian. And Evan Ingram, he's a DNP. This is actually his first DNP of the season. I went back and I looked because I was like, first DNP since he's been fully healthy of the part of the season. He's still a top 12 option for me. It's not Trevor Lawrence that's out there. It's Mac Jones, but here's
the thing. I love BTJ. Who doesn't love BTJ? If you love football and you don't love Brian Thomas Jr., then you lied. You don't love football.
Yeah, I was gonna say
BTJ and Malik Neighbors are unbelievable. They are cyborgs. Yeah. They are the cream of the crop of this 2024 rookie cohort. I feel like I'm not that that excited. I'm not really believing that Neighbors can do the thing with even like 14 targets. Brian Thomas Jr. is going to get maybe 7 or 8. Like, so to like Thomas Jr., even in the same breath as like a Malik Neighbors, I feel like you have to be saying like, but he's going to do so much more with each target than Malik Neighbors. And we're talking about Malik Neighbors, like one of the most exciting young players in the league. So
yeah,
we all want it to be a thing. We all want it to happen, just like we do with Neighbors. But we're in the fantasy playoffs now. The floor really, really scares me. He could have 2 catches. It would not surprise me at all. Not at all.
Yeah, he is very volatile. I will say over the past 2 weeks, 10 targets, 12 targets. Again, one of those he had 10 targets, only 4 receptions. That's the scary part where that can happen. It is still Mac Jones. It is, it's still the Jets. They've been more timid. They've certainly dumbed down since the beginning of the season and certainly since last year. But it's still the Jets defense. I'm not really excited to go up against them.
Right.
At the running back, for ETN Bigsby, like I hope you don't have to start either one of those. We'll talk about Sincere McCormick, but I'd start McCormick over either one of those guys. It's just they're splitting it way too much. It's really bad there,
and there's not much to split.
And there's not much to split. Yeah, so let's move on to probably the cream of the crop as far as what we're gonna do. It's flow chart. This is the flowchart time of the season where Breece Hall, he's not expected to be shut down for the season, but he is also a DNP. He's still dealing with that knee injury. Like if he goes, I think you have to start him. It's Breece Hall. It's smash matchup.
Yeah.
That's where you have to trust the organization and at least the coaching staff where they're like, hey, he's healthy enough to play. We're going to play him and he's going to go through.
Yep.
You start your studs in that situation. But if he doesn't play, the flow chart goes, I like Braylon Allen, rookie running back, more than I like also rookie running back. What is it? Isaiah Davis. Mm-hmm. But I'll be happy if I have either one of those guys. If Breece is out, I think you can full start either one of those guys as like closer to like a flex, kind of like a Patrick Taylor. I think they're probably a little bit higher on that list, and whichever one finds the end zone is the one you're going to be more happy with. But if Breece is in play, I don't think you can play either one of those guys. It's super risky on who's going to get the secondary touches. So that's kind of the flow chart for me. Adam, Garrett Wilson, both those guys are in play there. But what do you think about the running back situation? Do you kind of agree with that flow chart?
Yeah, if they're putting Breece Hall out there, like let's keep in mind the Jets were terrible last year too, and they kept shoving Breece. They gave him 37 touches in Week 18 last season with nothing to play for, but trying to get him to 1,000 yards rushing, which they did the math wrong and pulled him out too soon, and he didn't get 1,000 anyway because they're the Jets. So
994.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, Jets, you never disappoint.
37 carries. That's insane.
I was so disgusted. I called PETA. I called PETA on that one. I was that outraged. So yeah, if they're putting Breece Hall out there, it can't be that bad. Obviously, there's been a lot of hand wringing over Breece's knee. I saw him I heard he was at the hospital getting looked at by a specialist. That's what players with injuries do, guys. Like that was not that bad. But if he doesn't go, Allen and Davis is a coin flip. That they split it 54 to 53. Well, that's not 100. They were on the field together some, and one had 54% of the snaps, one had 53. So it's a toss up.
But basically the same amount of carries. But and don't hear what we're not saying. Breece Hall, if he's a go, we're throwing him into our lineups. But he's a huge risk of re-injury or just like anything like that. This is a knee injury, and this is where if he's like, it's swelling or whatever it is, like he could go out there and put up 2 carries and then be like, ow, this hurts. This is not good for me. Or he could go out there and get not 37 carries, but 20 touches and be old Breece against the Jaguars. So, it's a risk.
If he goes, I'm starting him, but I'm not planning for him to. I'm definitely looking at my alternatives.
I don't think he does. Yeah, I don't think he does either.
Yeah, unfortunately, because love me some Brees, might have to wait until 2025 to see what I was expecting to see this year. All right, moving on to Cowboys at Panthers. Colt, brace yourself. This about to blow your hair back. December of 2022. Do you know what was significant about that month for the Carolina Panthers?
It was that Lovie Smith. Was it Lovie Smith that brought that like won the game to give Houston the second pick?
Good guess. Good guess.
Okay.
That might have been like because it was week 18.
Maybe a little later
in January.
Yeah.
December 2022 was the last time that the Carolina Panthers opened a week as betting favorites to win an NFL game.
Bryce Young. This is the puke bowl right here. This is
it's something like that. It's the gag reflex. Ugh, bile's rising. Panthers open as 2.5-point home favorites over under 43.
Favorite.
Bryce Young has been better. I mean, Bryce Young really seems to have stabilized. Dave Canales, obviously his primary mission in life coming into this job was, hey, save Bryce Young before we lose all hope for this young man. Looked real bad. Oh man, did it look bad in the first couple weeks. Oh my gosh. He's leveling out. He's turning into an NFL quarterback kind of before our eyes. So that's great. But in fantasy, he's not there yet. He's not even a top 16 play. So it's got to be super flex. He doesn't run enough. The receivers aren't good enough. Sorry, they're not. So yeah, you can't really play him here. And Cooper Rush remains Cooper Rush. So, you've got a little bit of a Rush beard. Maybe
I do. I very much. When I saw him, it's not as red as his, but my skin is as pale as his. Yes. So it makes it look more red.
You should just show up to a Cowboys game in shoulder pads and a Rush jersey. What are they going to do?
I'll just throw a pick.
How would they know?
Cooper Rush.
Yeah. It's like, damn it, Coop. Just hand it off. You're like, oh, sorry.
All right.
Sorry.
I'll put a black visor on my eyes.
you could
it's
live.
Just beard. It's just beard.
You could put on an Oculus and we could do it live on the podcast. We'd get so many subscribers. All right.
There we go.
On to the running backs, Cowboys at Panthers. Chuba Hubbard, he suddenly has more work than even Chuba Hubbard knows what to do with. There's no Jonathan Brooks. There's no Miles Sanders. There's no Mekhi Phifer. He's by himself here. They're looking for guys to stick behind him to give him a breather. 25 touches is in play. He's an absolute smash play as a top 8 guy. Somewhat similarly, Rico Dowdle has finally put the last vestiges of what were once Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook out to pasture. Dowdle is third in the NFL over the last 3 weeks with 66 touches, trailing only Saquon with 75, Jacobs with 67. Rico's been rolling. Rico is a top 10 option against the Panthers' 32nd ranked run defense in fantasy. CeeDee Lamb, I have no earthly idea at all how he is still the wide receiver 4 overall for season long. I can't even conceive of how that's. I looked at the numbers. It doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense.
He had like a 40-point game, but those things will hold you afloat for quite a while. It seems.
He only has the 2 games over 15 fantasy points since week 4. So yeah, the early blow up game definitely has propped up his overall ranking. But the floor has also just been incredibly sturdy. I mean, he's obviously you're starting him because of CeeDee Lamb, but you don't have to feel bad about it because I mean he's gonna get you at least wide receiver 3 numbers, and he could flirt with wide receiver 1. But the crazy like Jamar Chase like weak flipping matchups, they've not there. Yeah, they've just not been an option with how limited the Cowboys are. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna do it. I don't care. I don't care what you say.
Go ahead.
You cut it from the podcast after if you want, you monster. I'm saying it. Tommy Tremble went 577-0 against the Eagles, against Tampa 2 weeks ago, and then scored a touchdown against the Eagles last week. Plus, the Cowboys just lost rising star, linebacker edge hybrid, DeMarvion Overshown, so they're shorthanded again. Don't love it, and Jatavion Sanders is getting worked back in after his scary neck injury, but it's not... Honestly, like it doesn't feel that far to me from playing Jake Ferguson, he scares me. He's 756, 7 catches, 56 yards, no touchdowns in the 2 healthy games that he's had with Rush. Obviously, Ferguson has missed time with a head bonk. Dak loved tight ends. Rush seems to just kind of like them as a friend. He wants to keep him in the friend zone. What say you, Colt? What does your gut tell you here? Is he a top 15 option?
Ferguson,
Jake.
Okay, because I knew you weren't talking about Trimble. Ferguson. Yeah, I think you put him out there. this is a game that the Panthers want to be competitive. It's not really a high over under the 43 points, but yeah, you could throw him out there. I think a top 15 option is probably reasonable. I do have a question for you on Tommy Tremble. It's week 15, so 15 games. Not that he's been there for all of them. Does he have over or under 15 receptions on the season?
Push?
It is over.
Oh,
16.
Okay. I mean, over. Obviously, I love Tommy.
Obviously, we love Tommy.
So as Colt and I were putting the show notes together, it's a live doc where we can see each other in there typing, and he catches me. Colt catches me in there typing about Tommy Tremble, and he just types right under where I'm typing. We aren't starting Tremble in the playoffs, man.
We're not.
And I said, 16-team leagues exist too, sir. You don't like it, but they're there. To which he responded, I will not be commenting on Tremble.
When I did, and then I did. Yeah, I couldn't help myself. Tommy Tremble's a guy we have to talk about sometimes.
we talk about Hunter Henry 8 hours a year on this podcast. We can't mention Tommy Tremble. That's not right.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's the way it goes sometimes. Let's go on to this next one here.
Onward.
I feel like we've exhausted that game. These are the later games here. We're kicking off the later games on Sunday. Steelers traveling to Philadelphia to play the Eagles. I think this is going to be a pretty fun one. Vegas is saying this is going to be a low-scoring game, 42.5 point over-under, with the Eagles favored by 5 at home. Russ, I put here that he's unplayable. You, as we mentioned, we have a live doc. You wrote that this is spicy. Like, I feel, especially with George Pickens not projected to go, not practicing right now. It's a hamstring injury. They are like, hey, he missed last week with this. I think they're pulling we're going to be into the playoffs. We would still like to get a higher seed, but we need him.
Right.
Much as like Mike Evans, they kind of threw him out there, got a huge touchdown, like injured his hamstring on it, and missed almost a month of the season. So I don't think that they want to do that with him. So Russ, it scares me.
I don't feel like saying Russ is unplayable is spicy, but I'm just reporting what I'm seeing live in the field. Somebody in the Discord posted a poll saying, should I start Russ or Drake May this week in like a 14-team league? And the results were over. Russ in a landslide. Russ won 6-1 on the votes, and I was like, whoa. What are we talking about this week with no Pickens? So, I agree with you, but public sentiment is not there.
Yeah, Russ, no Pickens, Eagles secondary. Like this is not where you want to be. You're not starting any wide receivers for the Steelers, are you? You wrote Mike Williams' name here. I feel like that is absolutely, again, 16-team leagues. Yeah, maybe as like a second flex, but there's not a chance that I'm throwing anybody out there. I had to in one league I picked up, who was it? I picked up Pat Freiermuth and played him as my second flex. I already had somebody in the tight end position, ended up finding the end zone, but I was like, who's going to step up? Like I wasn't confident that it was going to be Calvin Austin, who it wasn't. It ended up being Van Jefferson, who found the touchdown and had one reception. Like it was not a good outing for them. So yeah, Russ absolutely scares me, regardless if Pickens is in there. And then Hurts, we mentioned we're going to talk about him. I think he's a top 8 play. Like all season, he's basically been like a top 5. We're dumbing him down a little bit. That means you're still probably starting him. But 179, 118, and 108 passing yards in the past 3 games. That isn't enough to support the wide receivers. If you've had A.J. Brown or you've had Devonta Smith over these past few games, you've definitely noticed that. Like it's not been there. A.J. Brown, he's been the squeaky wheel, and this could be the week where it kind of blows up. Like you're still starting him. It's not been great, but this is one of the guys where he looks good on the field. He just hasn't been throwing it to him. Like AJ Brown's getting separation. Like when you look at the all 22 or you look at any of the film, like he's getting open. It's not an AJ Brown problem. It's a Jalen Hurts problem and a Saquon Barkley problem where they're running the ball really, really well.
Right.
Barkley's the running back 1. He's going to be the running back 1. He needs 121 yards per game for the next 4 games to break Eric Dickerson's record. Like it's very much in play, and I think this is one where he runs wild, and they maybe just don't need Hurts again. It's going to be a close one, though.
I mean, you look around the league, the Packers, the Lions, the Eagles. a lot of the best offenses are taking the air out of the football because they can, because they don't need to get into a shootout pissing match with these teams and just prove that they can throw for 350 yards and risk losing the game. They can just wear them down through sheer force of will. I will say the Steelers show up for big games. I mean, they welcomed the Ravens and punched them straight in the mouth a couple weeks ago and won that game. This is the Pennsylvania Bowl. They certainly, there's a chance that these two teams meet in February. I don't think so, but there's a chance. So, yeah, the Steelers are going to show up. Yeah, I agree. Hurts is more top 8. They could get him for a couple turnovers. Let's not forget, Hurts has, in the last couple seasons, has been increasingly turnover prone.
If Pickens was playing in this game, I'd pick the Steelers to win. I don't think that's crazy, but without him, I find it's going to be really tough. I think it's going to be close though. I think that 5 line is pretty good.
They're not blowing the Steelers out. No way.
No, they're certainly not. But yeah, AJ Brown is certainly in play. Devonta Smith, he's in play. He's more of that wide receiver 3 type of guy we've been talking about. He's high end, and he surprisingly has more touchdowns than AJ Brown on the season. You wouldn't think the smaller, shiftier kind of guy is the touchdown dude, but that's how it's been so far. So
kind of like the Vikings with Jefferson versus Addison.
And then Pat Freiermuth, he's found the end zone past two games. Does he find it a third time? No Pickens. Like, I like him more for yardage, and you're hoping for the touchdown, just like you are with any tight end. So Pat Freiermuth probably could be in play.
He's the wide receiver 1 this week. So, yeah.
Yeah, he's the wide receiver 1. And then both defenses, I like them if you can get them. I like the Eagles a little bit more, especially, again, Steelers lacking the weapons. We didn't mention Najee, but I think we both have him in as like a very low running back 2, high running back 3.
High floor, and it's just hard to see him getting more than like 15 points if he scores. And that's in like half PPR. So yeah, 15 might be best. Pretty rosy. Eagles DST I just don't love here. The Steelers are very difficult to force into like turnovers and sacks. That is the thing. Especially we know they're going to put the ball on the ground, running game wise, and not fumbling. Hopefully, so. It's kind of like trying to bite a turtle in its shell. Like the turtle's not going to win the fight, but it's not going to lose it. So yeah, I just that one I'm skeptical of. But DSTs are so tough because it depends on scoring and like are they punitive of the teams running up the score or not so much. So
what do we got next up on the slate?
On to what do we got next? We have the Colts at the Broncos. The Colts have to have this game if they're going to keep their playoff hopes alive. The Broncos are the team that they're trying to catch from behind for a wild card spot. I believe they're 2 games back. So yeah, this is their season right here. So we should expect the Colts to show up. Incorporate that into your rankings of Colts players as you see fit. Nix, I'm going to say is top 10 for me still. Obviously, he is still on the fringes of the Offensive Rookie of the Year talk with Jaden Daniels, and I think that's fair. I do hope he gets back to running again here, though. He's got 9 total rushing yards since week 9. Okay, so that was... Ooh. Yeah, the rushing part of his game has vanished. The passing numbers, the yardage and touchdowns have perked up over that time, so we haven't really noticed that as much. But last week against the Browns... The only the 1 passing touchdown and that plus the absence of any rushing work, now we're feeling it. So hope he gets it back on track. The Colts defense is not an overly intimidating draw. Both teams are fully rested though coming off their bye, so we'll see. Anthony Richardson. So I'm going to say, and a lot of people are going to turn their nose up at it and refuse to do it because it's the playoffs and I can't stomach the risk. I'm going to say Anthony Richardson is top 16, but truly rushing TD or bust more than any other quarterback. Obviously, that's not a surprise statement, but to the degree to which it's true, top 10 performance is in every single game where he has a rushing TD this year. Okay, so every time he's done it, boom, instant top 10 finish. 0 top 20 finishes in the games where he hasn't done it. So he is not going to get you there on the passing numbers. He's got 3 rushing scores since he came back as the starter. So I mean, they are using him down there, to the chagrin of Jonathan Taylor owners. I mean, if you're okay with starting Jalen Hurts in a rough matchup, this is not significantly different philosophically than starting Hurts, going with Richardson here. Even has Shane Steichen, Hurts' old coach. So it's horrifying. It's gross. But if it's between him and like Kirk Cousins or Geno Smith, I'm going to go Richardson. I'm going to go with the guy who could run for 2 touchdowns. Personally,
Yeah, I would go Richardson certainly over both those guys. But you mentioned Kirk Cousins. That guy is not a guy. You're not in the playoffs if you have Kirk Cousins on your roster. He should be on waivers on most teams.
Fair.
Yeah, he's been horrible.
Yeah.
It's been downright diabolical on what he's done to fantasy teams this season.
I'll put just a dash of respect back on Kirk's name here in a little bit. But first, Jonathan Taylor remains top 12. The volume has been tremendous. Like, he should be way better, and I don't think he's even in the top 15 in fantasy in running back rankings season long right now. Did miss a couple games, but I'll say he's top 12. The volume, he's got 20 carries in 6 of his last 8 games, but he's got no rushing touchdowns since week 8. So but the dam's going to give eventually when you're touching the ball this much. Absolutely could against the Broncos. The Broncos' run defense is not anything that you really seek out, but it's not a stone wall like Detroit or Baltimore. So and whatever, he's Jonathan Taylor. He was probably your first round pick. You're starting him.
Yeah,
we don't know who I put Broncos RB of choice in brackets here because I don't know what else to put at this point. We really don't know what we're getting here. Javonte appeared to be losing the job to Estime in Week 10 against the Chiefs, where I think Javonte had like 1 carry in that game, only to roar, air quotes, back with 9 carries the following week. Then he vanished again in Week 13 before the Broncos went behind the bye week curtain. Will they come out with a renewed commitment to Jaleel McLaughlin, who looked pretty electric, 14 carries, 84 rushing yards against the Browns last time out? McLaughlin is worth a flex play if you like playing Russian roulette with 3 or more rounds chambered. If you are a riverboat gambler supreme, you can consider McLaughlin in a serious pinch. He makes as much sense as anything, and the matchup against the Colts is pretty sweet.
Yeah, you said running back of choice. I choose none.
Yeah, that's
I don't mind having them on my bench, but and then again, it's like you're hoping for confidence this game so that you can play them in the future in lieu of an injury. But yeah, and then you're starting them in the semifinals or the finals of the playoffs. It's scary.
Yeah. The opposite of scary, Courtland Sutton, which, 2 years ago, we never thought we'd say that again. As automatic as it gets right now, he's got between 8 and 11 targets, between 6 and 8 catches, and between 70 and 125 yards receiving 6 weeks straight. That kind of consistency you cannot put a price on in fantasy at this time of year. He is top 8 with a bullet. Michael Pittman, I'm going to say, is like a top 20, top 30. Started to say top 25. I'm going to say top 30. He has been all right since Richardson's reinsertion. He's averaging 7.3 targets, 5.3 receptions, about 61 yards a game, but hasn't scored. He cannot score from distance. He's one of the slower starting receivers in the league, and the Colts wisely do not want Richardson throwing near the goal line at all right now. They are on the ground if they are within 10 yards of the end zone. That's a bad recipe for any wide receiver. Like, he's just not going to score touchdowns. And Patrick Surtain, the second, the Broncos' very high-priced cornerback, got smoked by Jerry Jeudy last week or 2 weeks ago before the Broncos bye. So he may make it a point of erasing Michael Pittman, who is kind of a fake wide receiver one. He is more of a wide receiver. He's more of a T. Higgins than a Jamar for sure. He may make it a point of just blacking him completely out. But Michael Pittman may finish the game in the seats, like with what Surtain does to him this week. So bear that in mind. Josh Downs, same thing. He's top 30, but the floor is real scary with a guy who might throw for 90 yards. If you start a tight end for either of these teams that are playing in this game, you are cooked. You're even if you score like 150 points, Sleeper or ESPN or whatever, they will disqualify you for having started Kylan Granson or Lucas Kroll. Don't do it. Broncos DST, I mean, it's the number one DST in fantasy football by most scoring. Obviously, you're unleashing them here at home, coming out of their bye against Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, I'd rather start Tommy Tremble over either one of those tight end options.
You're darn right you would.
For the Colts or the Broncos. Let's go on to the next one here. This is game of the week. This is game of the week. Highest over under for it starts with a 5. 54.5 point over under. Bills traveling to Detroit to play the Lions. This is going to be a really, really fun one. I mean, goodness, it's probably a shorter list to say who aren't you starting, because you're starting. You can start both quarterbacks. Josh Allen, absolutely.
Oh yeah, Josh Allen is top 0. He's not even the top 1 quarterback right now. Like I said Lamar is the number 1. Allen is 0, okay? Because he's obviously he's on another level right now. This is going to be such a good game. Like we got some great matchups coming down the stretch here. Bills last time in Detroit was Thanksgiving 2022 in a 28-25 game that the Lions should have won. The Lions came back in the fourth quarter to take the lead in that game. At that moment, if the Lions had won out, they would have made the playoffs. And we kind of suspected as much even watching that game then 2 years ago. The Bills, Josh Allen was injured but gutted it out, got the ball to Diggs for the touchdown at the end. Toward the end, they wind up winning the game. The Lions would only lose one more time that year, and really, that game kind of marked the emergence of what would become this current iteration of the Lions. Dan Campbell's got a long memory. Okay, when the Cowboys won that BS game against them last year on the Taylor Decker false, illegal motion or ineligible receiver, he made it a point to go to Dallas and kick their teeth into the parking lot the next time he saw him. It would not surprise me for the Lions to show up even a little bit extra hard for this one. Plus, it's the Bills. I mean, this is a legitimate possible Super Bowl preview. So, yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. Thank you, NFL.
Who do you have winning this game?
Oh, the home team. If this was in Buffalo, I'd give it to the Bills. But
yeah, I think that home crowd is going to be really loud, and the Bills fans will travel. But
sure.
But yeah, I got to give it to the Lions. It's really close though, and it's funny because it's been hard to pick Buffalo. I mean, it's been easy to pick them as favorites, but when you think about their weapons, it's like, okay, James Cook, he's a top 15 running back, as in the NFL. You got Amari Cooper now, but he's been bad. Like it's been Josh Allen. You're banking on Josh Allen making all of the plays, maybe throwing for 3 touchdowns, maybe rushing for 3 touchdowns, maybe all of that happening in one game, maybe catching one of his own touchdowns. Like, yeah. So yeah, he's literally been doing it all. I had a post, 2 weeks ago. I've since deleted it. But I will say it was basically like, why is Josh Allen really an MVP consideration? And then he goes off in like 2 of his best games of his entire career. It wasn't why was he in consideration or why was he leading.
Oh, you were not alone. There was a lot of people with that kind of talk.
It was just Lamar has been absolutely phenomenal. This wouldn't surprise me if we get another co-MVP season with Lamar and Josh Allen. I think the last one was somebody in running
Manning,
back.
I want to say.
Yeah, something like that. It wasn't too long ago, past 25 years for sure.
Yeah.
I thought there was maybe there's an Adrian Peterson one too, but I thought maybe he just ran away with it himself. But I'll vet that. But yeah, I mean, you're starting everybody here. I think you could start Goff. It's the matchup's not great against the Bills. You could run on them a little bit better than you could pass on them. But yeah, Gibbs, Monty, like you're starting all these guys. James Cook, people are going to be a little bit scared of. Like, what's your confidence level with James Cook?
So yeah, obviously Jahmyr Gibbs top 8, David Montgomery top 12. You start your studs. This game is the poster child for that phrase. James Cook is putting owners in a little bit of a rough spot right here. 8 touches in last week's track meet, and it was his 3rd week in a row coming in under 45% of the snaps. I do this for a living. One thing I never thought I'd have to wonder is James Cook going to be able to stay on the field in passing down situations for the Bills? What the heck was that? I mean, the Bills went naked. They went empty backfield a ton in that game, obviously, because James Cook wasn't on the field. So that's fine. But I mean, what is this game set up to be if not another situation where Cook is either going to have to get it in passing down situations, or what is even the option B? What is option B? Is there an option B? Like I do not see the 190-pound James Cook getting anything going between the tackles against the Detroit Lions. I just don't see it. So, yeah. I mean, he's been fantastic. He's coming off a 1,500-yard season, and he's been fantastic again this year. But I can't call him more than an RB2 at absolute most here. I'm sorry, I just can't do it.
Yeah, it's been tough. I mean, if you can't really take last year or last game against the Packers and call it prescriptive, right? Because it was Josh Jacobs finding the end zone 3 times, but he was still under 4 carry, only had whatever it was, 66 yards. Like, it wasn't a lot.
And the Packers are just they're playing a totally different brand of offense right now too. So yeah,
it's been really, really, really tough. I vet the MVP thing, you were right. It was Manning and Steve McNair. The one I was thinking of was Brett Favre and Barry Sanders back in '97. I knew there was one with a running back, and it was a little bit further than 25 years, not quite, but good call on the Manning McNair.
Barry should not have had to share that. They did Barry dirty on that one. All right, moving on to the receivers. Amon-Ra obviously remains Amon-Ra. He's top 6. Amari Cooper, I'm going to say he's like a top 20. You know, with what the Bills just showed us, really in the last like 6 quarters of football, with Josh Allen turning into like a mushroom cloud supernova type of potential run here, you want any piece of that you can get, and Amari Cooper's the main piece receiving wise right now. He got 14 targets last week. It should have yielded more than 6 catches and 95 scoreless yards, but yeah, the Lions are not afraid to give up big plays on defense. They like to take chances. They're confident they can score points and keep up with anybody. So yeah, Cooper has a high ceiling. Let's not forget, Amari Cooper put 265 on the Texans with Joe Flacco at quarterback literally this time last year. Okay, let's keep some respect on the man's name. He can win you a matchup single-handedly here. Let's be real. He could also have 4 catches for 12 yards. So let's keep it real. Khalil Shakir, top 25. I want to push him higher, but last week was only his second top 16 finish of the season, and Keon Coleman's back. Dalton Kincaid is back. Things are getting a little bit crowded. Mm-hmm. But you want to, I mean, you're starting him. I mean, you want pieces of this game with a 54, point spread. So just temper expectations a little bit.
Keon Coleman seems like a guy where if you one of those guys where you snuck in and you need like this is the highest over under game of the week. If you need a long shot like that's another guy for me. To throw into your lineup. I'm the 6th seed in a league where I'm going against the 3 seed in the first round. Tough opponent, tough out. I'm between Coleman for my wide receiver 3 and Christian Watson, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. So yeah, that's a tough one for me. To Watson against the Seahawks, I'll talk about a little bit more. Coleman, but it feels close. It feels like that caliber of play. So I mean, you're going with Watson though.
We'll get to that in a bit.
Okay.
So, but Keon Coleman, healthy, looks like he's going to be a full go. Shouldn't be any snap restrictions or any of that nonsense. I'll say top 30. Again, you want pieces of this. Anybody could do anything here. And Coleman did go for 9 catches, 195 yards, and a touchdown in his last 2 full games pre-injury. He appeared to be starting to figure it out, especially once Cooper came to town. That was a life changer for him. And the Lions are not afraid to get burned on big plays. So high ceiling play. Laporta, I'm going to say is top 10, and don't at me. I don't care. I still choose to believe. He had 2.8 targets per game across his first 6, 5.7 a game over his last 6, and he remains one of the absolute best bets for a touchdown at the position in fantasy. Dalton Kincaid coming back, top 18 feels a little bit generous, and again is about the matchup, is about the implied point total. I choose not to fully believe. Like, ceiling is there with major shootout potential, but with Cooper Coleman back healthy, the floor is scary outside of full PPR. They just haven't figured out how to use him. Brady just doesn't know how to use him as a tight end and as an offensive coordinator. I don't know how else to characterize it. So yeah, that one makes me too nervous.
And I don't want to beat the dead horse and be like, oh, this would be the game where he has 2 for 2 touchdowns. Like, it's going to be a really high scoring game. We know this, but this could be the game where Kincaid has that, and it's valuable because he found the end zone twice. But the floor is as low as it goes with all the weapons back for sure. Would
you start Kincaid or Juwan Johnson, Saints?
Oh man, I
would
go Kincaid. I would go Kincaid. If Carr was in, I would go Juwan Johnson pretty confidently.
Good point. Good point.
But yeah, given the quarterback situation, that whole I'm not dealing with the Saints at all. Let's go to this next game here. We got the Bucks traveling to LA to face the Chargers. 45.5 point over under. This one here again, it's not necessarily. It's not as good as the last game. The last game was game of the week, but you're starting almost every single piece here.
Should be a good game.
It should be a really, really good game here. We got Mayfield. He's been electric. He's a top 10 play. I feel like Justin Herbert. He's been banged up. He's banged up right now. Was he a DNP today? I remember reading. I remember seeing something where he was, DNP today. with an ankle and leg injury. And I remember his reports were something like, "Oh, it's not as bad as it has been in the past." Remember, he got like a separated rib or a cracked rib like early in the season.
Played through a high ankle. Yeah,
he's an Iron Man. He plays through a lot. But yeah, Herbert, I think, is somebody you could play. The Bucs, easy to throw on. So if he's out there, you're excited to play him. You're even more excited if Ladd McConkey's out there.
That's the one.
We really need Ladd McConkey out there because, yeah, I mean, he's just been electric so far on the season. He was limited in practice today. Again, it's Wednesday, but I'm expecting Ladd to go. Like, this is a game where the Chargers really need it. Yeah, and it just gives you a little bit more confidence in Herbert. I have a question for you. I have Sam Darnold, Justin Herbert, and Kyler Murray. I'm deciding to go with Sam Darnold. This is 4-point passing touchdown. So it's Darnold versus Chicago. It is Murray versus New England, and then obviously Justin Herbert versus the Bucs. I don't like the Chicago matchup, but he was good against Chicago last time. We'll talk about that matchup a little bit later, but I think he was 21 points last time they played just a few weeks ago.
Obviously, Kyler is scary getting to this time of the season. But against
burns me every time I put him in my lineup.
Yeah, I get it. But he's got basically top 16, 3 top 17 performances in the last 4 weeks, 2 of which were top 10. His rushing production is down though. I mean, kind of like with Knicks, that gets real scary real fast. It's the Patriots though. Like that's what it comes down to. Is like I don't respect the Patriots defense right now. He has to do it. I mean, he has to do it here. I would go Kyler there. Darnold would probably be second, though, honestly, over Herbert for me.
That's who I was really debating between. Herbert really wasn't in the mix. I'm lucky to have 3 solid options. I'm gonna probably rolling with Darnold, but I'm watching all practice reports, everything with Kyler, watching interviews. So I'm gonna watch one good highlight, and I know it's gonna be like, oh, put Kyler back into your lineup.
Yeah. I believe.
Speaking about practices, Bucky Irving missing practice on Wednesday. Something to monitor because he left the game really, really early there last week, and it was the Rachaad White show. Like Rachaad White, he's not on any waiver wires, but if you've got him, like if you have, Rachaad White or Zach Charbonnet, like you've kind of rolled into some elite options in the running back realm, which are really hard to find. If Bucky Irving plays, this isn't a great matchup. The Chargers are really, really stout against the run. Are you throwing Rachaad White back out there after having a pretty good performance last week?
If Bucky Irving and Isaac Guerendo can get healthy and play in this week and keep doing what they've been doing, this may go down as one of the greatest waiver wire hero finishes at running back in recent memory in fantasy football. I mean, Guerendo, Bucky Irving, Charbonnet looks like he's going to see at least one more start. McCormick for the Raiders, like just guys charging. Who I never heard of half these guys. Who are Patrick Taylor? Oh my God, yeah.
Every season we have one name that sticks out to me. I don't know if you'll remember it, but Tim Hightower for the Saints, probably 10 years ago.
Oh,
this is the time of the season where these nasty names you didn't hear, weren't drafted, haven't had starts in seasons in fantasy football, and now they're winning you championships. Rashad Perryman, when he was on the Bucs, I think he had 3 touchdown game. Like these guys are guys you can plug and play given opportunity. And we're lucky if some of them are actually producing, like Sincere McCormick. Like some of these guys are actually out there. It's not just opportunity; they're actually balling out. So yeah, we're fortunate enough to have that. But yeah, Rachaad White, I think you can still play him even if Bucky is out there.
Yes.
With less confidence.
A lot less confidence. Yeah. If Bucky goes, I think Bucky is staging a hostile takeover of this backfield. Like it's not like he's forcing a 2-headed situation. He's the better player. I mean, he requires less to go right on a given play to get a huge positive outcome from that play. Guys like him are the way that the position is going. Like big bruisers who they're hugely powerful, but there's also a lot of surface area to hit. Like Rachaad White, I think they're going the way of the dinosaur. So if Bucky goes, it's his backfield basically. Like he's too good to take off the field. The Bucs are trying to division away. They cannot fall into a tie with the Falcons. If the Falcons win, that's like them winning a game and a half because they get back into a tie with the Bucs if the Bucs lose. So they've got to keep the pedal to the metal. They've got to win 3 or 4 more games to feel good about, okay, we've got the division under control. Really 3. So it's all about whether Irving goes, basically, for me when it comes to Rachaad White. Sean Tucker stands. Sit down. I know he had some nice runs again when Irving was out last week, but there's too many cooks in the kitchen here. What about the Chargers backfield? No, not a fan. Shaking your head vigorously.
They are in the Nick Chubb tier of running backs, and more specifically, Gus Edwards. You're happy if you find the end zone, but you're not getting breakaway plays, and if you're starting Kamani Vidal, say a prayer before before the game starts and you have him locked in your lineup, because it's absolutely terrifying.
I'm not starting Vidal anywhere, so I'm lucky in that regard because I don't need this to be right, and it probably won't be right.
Yeah,
but look at the forest for the trees here a little bit. Are the Chargers throwing more right now? Sure, yes. There's been an uptick in their passing volume. Bully for them, bully for McConkey owners. Do the Chargers want to be throwing more right now, going into December with the playoffs looming ahead, and the Chargers have the inside track for a playoff spot. They're probably going to be playing for meaningful football in mid-January. Do they want to be throwing the ball right now? No, they don't. They want to go back to Jim Harbaugh hates this. He wants to get the ball on the damn ground, and he wants to go beat teams up in the trenches. He hates that he doesn't have a running back that will allow him to do that. And Gus Edwards, hey, he's Gus Edwards. He's the quintessential. If you need 1 yard, he's going to get you 3. If you need 5 yards, he's going to get you 3. That's it. That's all he does. Kamani Vidal has a huge opportunity here still. Has he seized it yet? No. But there is nobody else that can do it. There is nobody else. Yeah. If a running back takes over down the stretch for the Chargers, it's going to be Vidal. So, do with that what you will. Do you want to start him this week? Of course not. It could cost you your week. But if you are really up against that running back, Vidal is kind of like we were saying with Worthy earlier, the type of home run swing that could hit really, really hard. But it's risky as hell. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah, you're not starting him in the fantasy playoffs, but
okay, fine.
But no. I see what you're saying. You want him to take over. And again, another guy where I'm okay if you have to drop him. If you need to start this week, you need to add a Thielen, Jacoby Myers. I can't really think of Cecile McCormick or any of these other guys where you need a start this week. Drop Vidal, arguably drop Edwards if you absolutely need to. It's risky, but if you can hold on to them, or if you have the bye week or something like that, see if they emerge and have something there. But yeah, it's wildly risky.
So you would start Isaiah Davis over Kamani Vidal this week?
Even if Breece Hall was active, yeah.
Oh, emphatic. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How about you take us to the Buccaneers tight end situation there, sir?
Yeah, Buccaneers. Cade Otton. Yeah. I think you can start him with a little bit of a more degree of confidence. Again, this is a guy who's always been on the field. Finally found a little more pep in his step. 35 yards, 30, 20, and then last week 70. It was saved on a big play, but that's kind of what you hope for at the tight end position. Still haven't found the end zone in the last 4 games. Could it be here against the Chargers? Perhaps. I know we didn't mention Mike Evans at all. Yeah, you're starting Mike Evans, so I feel like that was kind of. If you need us to
tell you to start Mike Evans, you need to change hobbies. Go make a ship in a bottle or something.
Yeah. Jalen McMillan, are you chasing his 2 touchdown performance?
I'm not in my lineup, but it is noteworthy to me that as kind of his involvement. So they tried to get him going early on in the season, and he had some drops and ran the wrong route a couple times, and they kind of let's ixnay the McMillan hype here for a minute. But they're bringing him back around now, and it sure seems like it could potentially be at Otton's direct expense in terms of involvement. So I'm not necessarily changing my lineup either way on that information yet, but it's something to monitor. Stone Smart. Colt, are you a smart man? Can we get your wife in here? She can answer.
I see what you're doing here. I see what you're doing here.
Built far more like a wide receiver at 6'4", 225. Smart flashed for 54 yards on 3 catches last week after Will Dissly bit the dust. R.I.P. Diesel. Smart is the poster child for risk reward this week, kind of like a Tremble. Dissly is the term multi-week absence was bandied about, so that's not good. He landed horribly on his fully outstretched arm and shoulder against the Chiefs. Yeah, we're not going to see him for a minute. So anyway, poster child for risk reward here. The goose egg is highly possible if for some reason you're forced to do this. But with Dissly out, and if McConkey were to be, a game day inactive, God forbid, there's a scenario where Smart winds up a fantasy folk hero against a very leaky Tampa Bay secondary. It's possible. And then I could see streaming. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it's possible. I'm looking at Stone Smart's photograph here. He looks like a smart guy. He looks like he hasn't ever forgot anything he's ever been taught.
He sounds like he was born to be an anchor on Dateline.
I guarantee he knows the entire playbook.
Hey, got to be a smart guy to know Harbaugh's playbook. I mean, that's no light read.
Yeah.
As for the DSTs, I could see streaming the Bucs here if McConkey is out, but both options really risky. Like you're presuming to kind of be able to predict the weather there, and I don't like it.
Yeah. Let's move on to the real game of the week. Cool. The Patriots are traveling to Arizona to play the Cardinals.
Is this the first matchup between the two teams since your Patriots tore Kyler Murray's ACL? They didn't really. It was a non-contact injury, but it was still your fault.
Yeah, they'll yeah. There's a little history. 45.5 point over under here. The Cardinals are favored by 5.5. Kyler, yeah, he's a top 12 option. We kind of talked about him a little bit. Drake May, I think it's worth noting, he is 6th in passing yards and touchdowns in games where he's fully played. So weeks 6 through 13 and minusing week 8, where I think it was concussion that he got knocked out. 18.5 fantasy points per game. Like that's. You probably look away in a 12-team league, but he's doing this with not a notable receiver whatsoever. Like I just talked about Jalen McMillan. Think about his other Washington teammate. Who has more fantasy points this season? Jalen Polk or Jalen McMillan?
Jalen McMillan by a whole lot.
But yeah, well, if you take out this last game, they basically would have been the same. But yeah, Polk is somebody who's just absolutely disappeared, done his best Houdini act of David Copperfield, I'm out of here, just disappearing. Not part of the offense whatsoever. So yeah,
I tried to tell the world, there's no way the University of Washington has never produced a fantasy relevant wide receiver before. It's never happened. They're not going to have 3 in one draft class. Odunze, McMillan, and Polk. Someone's not coming back to base camp on this one. Somebody's going to die on the mountain. Looks like it's Polk. Sorry.
And it's looking like Polk. Yeah, I tried to trade a second for him early on in the season, all season long. And I do believe in things happen for a reason. I did not get that deal done. I am so thankful here now. But yeah, it's really funny looking back on trades. Last season and the season before, I was constantly trying to trade Terry McLaurin and Cortland Sutton, and now having them, I ended up trading McLaurin earlier in this season, but I still have Sutton, and I'm starting him here in the fantasy playoffs, and I couldn't be happier. I'm starting him over Marvin Harrison Jr., who we're going to be talking about. He's like a top 30 option. Like if he gets a touchdown, you're very happy. He's had a lot of yards with those games too. But you've been disappointed if he hasn't. And, he's a top 30 option. I think he's the wide receiver 24 on the season. His expectations were way too high. Like being a wide receiver 24 as a rookie, that's great. Like we were expecting a lot more targets. And I think as a fantasy community as a whole, we're expecting a lot more targets. They simply aren't there. It's Trey McBride has been the first read. Talking about people who aren't getting touchdowns, still no receiving touchdowns. It's just absolutely insane. But yeah, I mean, you're starting Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr. or like Adam Thielen versus the Cowboys. Like that
Harrison, don't give me that.
It is Harrison, but I think it's up for debate. Like, what is it?
I'm sure.
Yeah,
there are people who'll be asking if they shouldn't, but they will.
Yeah, Harrison is definitely the big play guy, but his floor is lower than Adam Thielen's. I can guarantee you that.
In full PPR. Yeah.
Any week I've started Kyler, I've also started Marvin Harrison Jr. in that same league, and they have disappointed every single time. I've got them on the down weeks every single time. So these are guys where you have to keep playing them. You don't chase the big games. They haven't been following up. But outstanding rookie season for rookie. If he had a different name, if his name was Romadunze or Brian Thomas Jr. or something like that, you'd be like, oh, I'm pretty thrilled with this. I'm happier than expected. If you're the 4th overall pick, you're not super excited, but yeah, still on the trajectory of like a Larry Fitzgerald rookie season. Funny enough for the Cardinals, but yeah, it's been not so great. James Conner, yeah, he's locked in your lineup. He's been phenomenal. Stevenson, I think you're kind of hoping he finds the end zone, but he's a guy who's been producing yardage, but been anemic to the end zone here lately. You're not starting any Patriots wide receiver. We kind of already talked about that. There's plenty of waiver wire options. Keon Coleman, though, he's probably available in about half of leagues. I'd go that deep. Xavier Worthy. Like, there's a lot of other options that you can go to. If
you had to start Demario Douglas versus Kayshon Boutte, which way would you lean?
I would go Douglas. Yeah, certainly. In any kind of, and Boutte hasn't even been like he's been a big play guy, but even then, it's like his big plays, he ends the game with 60 yards. Like, it's not been amazing.
He's getting a lot of cardio. I will say that.
He's getting a lot of cardio. I hope he develops a little bit more. He had a lot of off-season stuff. But maybe what he's doing, he's setting it up so he bets on himself for comeback player of the year. I see what he's doing. All part of his plan. But seriously, you're not starting any Patriots wide receivers. You're starting McBride. You can start Henry. He is very much in the Freiermuth tier, where it's like, this is the lead receiver for that team here this week. That's where I think you could do it.
Huh. These seven accounts all bet the over on Kayshon Boutte at 149.5 receiving yards this week at the same time in the last 5 minutes. Interesting.
Yeah, thankfully it's not Kayshon Boutte. Thankfully it's only Kayshon Boutte 7. Like, that is not him. We don't have to worry about that at all.
Luckily.
Yeah. And then the Cardinals defense, if you play any DFS, I think you could start them. I looked at them in some like FanDuel and DraftKings lineups. They've been pretty cheap, and yeah, I think this is a game where I wouldn't expect a ton of points from the Patriots.
And they could get him for an I mean, he is a rookie. He's playing some hero ball. They could get him for a pick or two. Wouldn't be surprising.
Yeah.
On to the Sunday night special this week. The Green Bay Packers return to Seattle for the first time in 6 years, first time with Jordan Love, and for just the 4th time since the infamous 2012 Fail Mary that scandalized the league into ending the referee work stoppage and deepened an underrated Packers-Seahawks rivalry. Welcome to the Hawks Nest, Jordan Love. Hope you brought some earplugs. Jordan Love, I'm going to say, is like a top 16 type of guy. I mean, the Packers have transitioned from a team that was way more comfortable chucking it around the yard from start to finish. Love had 15 touchdowns, passing touchdowns in his first 5 games. They've transitioned away from that to a team that wants to go and play kind of Detroit Lions style bully ball with Josh Jacobs, and Love has only got 6 passing touchdowns in his last 6 games now. So I don't think the Seahawks can really push the Packers into changing what they do, what their offensive strategy is here, and they're not going to change up just for the Seahawks. So yeah, I'm expecting like a QB 16-ish kind of status quo game for Love here. Don't love it. And then Geno, I'm going to say is top 20. This one just screams like 220 passing yards, touchdown, and a pick, and he's done. Like, and that touchdown might come at the very end as the Seahawks scumbag the Packers scandalously once again. So yeah, it could be the Jonnu Smith experience at quarterback. It's basically what Geno's been doing since the Week 9 points bonanza with the Rams has been squarely middle of the road. Jacobs, top 3. He is that dude. He's taken over this offense. Kenny Three Sticks. Kenneth Walker III for the Seahawks. I would say he's not expected to go with how they're talking about him. They're saying anytime they say, "Oh, we're sending him for testing," that's not sounding good. And especially with what Charbonnet just showed us, like why rush him back?
Absolutely, yeah. That's the good thing. It's Charbonnet is balling out, so it is beneficial for the team to just let him heal up if possible.
I mean, the Seahawks are in the driver's seat for the division, so yeah, they've got to think about January here. Zach Charbonnet, top 12. Assuming that Walker sits, I mean, is that too spicy? I hesitate to get greedy after Charbonnet's RB1 overall Krakatoa last week, but the Seahawks were all too willing to throw a saddle across him and ride him all day long last week. I don't see a reason to think that they're not going to do the exact same thing against a Green Bay defense that's a little bit run funnily.
Yeah, I saw somebody call him Charbzard. Like he went from a Charmander to a Charbzard in one single game. I said, okay, I like that. But yeah, we've seen him in a limited or in a full-time role whenever Kenneth Walker has missed games or just been game scripted out or had to relieve him. And this is the Zach Charbonnet that we really wanted to see in his rookie season.
Oh yeah.
We came in and we're like, why would they draft him? And they already have Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker really produced. I think it was just his first year, and he was going to do a second year, and they drafted Zach Charbonnet. And yeah, we thought it was the death of him, and it wasn't. And now, yeah, it's raising a lot of flags. But yeah, I think top 12 is certainly in the range of outcomes. Really, really high running back too. If you have him on your roster, he's probably in your flex spot, and yeah, this is a great time to have him. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if the Seahawks get it down inside the 10, they're not going to put it in Geno's hand. I mean, they've shown us that they don't trust him with those kind of high risk plays where anything bad that can happen to a quarterback is disproportionately likely to happen within 10, 15 yards of the goal line. So yeah. Anyway, onto the receivers. Jayden Reed not repeating a big game against the Lions last week. He went off for, I think, 113 yards against them the first time around. Not repeating that effort is one thing. But one measly stinking target all game long, obviously doesn't catch it either. He did have a touchdown that got called back on a penalty, but what receiver doesn't, honestly, these days? I mean, I don't know. Who cares?
Yeah.
That's old news. Reed is still a flex, I would say. I mean, obviously, it's been a long time since the heady September days where he was the greatest scam ADP steal ever in the history of fantasy football. It's been a long time. But I wouldn't fault anyone who's suffering from a crisis of faith here at this point. Like, the arrow has been just trending straight down, and the Packers don't want to throw it if they don't have to. They might not have to here. So, yeah, he's a wide receiver 3 trending toward 4, really, for me.
Yep.
Christian Watson, C-Watt, I'm going to say he's top 25. He's averaging. C-Watt has taken this thing over a little bit over the last few weeks. Like, Reed is hovering around like 55, 60% of the snaps. Obviously, Romeo Doubs has been out. C-Watt's been glued to the field. He's got 93% snap share the last 2 weeks. He's their only every down receiver right now. He's averaging 84 yards a game since the Week 9 bye. One of those 4 games, he did goose egg against the Niners, but that was, they went in there, they killed the Niners. It was never a game. Game script took over. And he's gotten over 114 yards in 2 of those games, so I like him here. There's real ceiling here.
Who was your options? It was Christian Watson versus who else?
Keon Coleman, who I do like a lot as well.
Yeah, I think Christian. Well, I don't think there's a path where Keon Coleman is the wide receiver 1 on the team this week.
No.
Regardless of the really nice matchup and high over/under, Christian Watson does have that opportunity, and we've seen him have over 100 yards. One was 150, 2 out of the past 4 games. So, can he disappear? He can, but if trends are continuing, 2 back-to-back full-time player games where Matt LaFleur earlier in the beginning of the season, they're like, hey, who's your wide receiver 1? He's like, oh, we have 4 wide receiver 1s. Christian Watson's kind of stepping into that role. So do I like him as a top 25? I'm not that bullish, but I could see him being the lead guy, and I like him over Jayden Reed, which I'm not sure a lot of people are in that same boat.
Yeah, and imagine saying that in September. I mean, imagine that by December we'd be saying that, and with a straight face. Yeah, how life comes at you fast. Tucker Kraft, I'll say he's top 10. He's basically a store brand Sam Laporta at this point. Similar reception potential, similar odds for a touchdown. Doubling back real quick, DK Metcalf, I'll say he's like top 25. Top 24, top 25 type option. He has been quiet. Definitely has been quiet since the big Week 7 knee scare where we thought, oh God, not DK. It's too soon. It's been too soon since Rashee Rice. But he's averaging 7.25 targets a week since coming back. The splash plays will come. They could come this week. I mean, the Packers secondary is pretty stout, but he's DK Metcalf, and JSN, who is now absolutely a top 12 option. He's been cranking. that's going to start to pull defense's attention away from DK Metcalf. He could thrive. He could thrive this week. So yeah, he's high ceiling. The floor is not bad.
Yeah, DK Metcalf is the one who kind of scares me. I'm not moving away from him, but Geno, I mean, he's thrown 3 touchdowns over the past 4 games.
Right.
He hasn't eclipsed 254 yards over the past 4 games. Like, we want to see the yardage go up, and we want to see some more touchdowns from Geno. It reminds me a lot of Matthew Stafford last year, where it was like he was getting a good amount of yards, but the touchdowns just simply weren't there. So we need to have more touchdowns and more end zone targets there for DK Metcalf.
Geno's story in Seattle was great, and obviously Russ went to Denver, and things went very poorly. Russ leaving was disastrous for DK. Like, Russ, more than any other quarterback in the league, is willing to throw YOLO balls to huge receivers that they can just sky over a cornerback to go get. Geno will never do that. Geno would, if the blackjack dealer gave him 10, Geno would say, "Stay. I'm done. I'm staying at 10. I'm not taking. I can't risk it. I can't risk getting 12 on this card." So, yeah. So, anyway, on to the Seahawks tight ends. Noah Fant, buddy, I left the light on for you as long as I could, but your table for 2 with Kyle Pitts is now ready. Enjoy your dinner in hell. I will Noah Fant, no more. Kyle Pitts, no more. I'm done with it.
I think they're both 23 still, maybe 22. They've been in the league collectively for 15 years, but they're still just 22 years old.
Noah Fant is 17 years old. I don't understand how that's even allowed. That must be some foreign exchange student thing. I don't know.
That's how it goes. Let's go on to the Monday night doubleheader. Again, not a big fan of the doubleheaders. Yeah. There's one game that's a little bit earlier. For me, it's 5:15. There's another one we'll talk about 5:30. So basically about the same time. We're not even spacing them apart now, but we're going to have them at the same time. It is what it is. This matchup here, Chicago Bears traveling to Minnesota to play the Vikings. Vikings are almost a touchdown favorite, 6.5 point home favorites. 43.5 point over under. That's the part that has me a little skeptical. Both defenses are good, but I could see this one getting a little bit into a shootout. The way Caleb's been playing too. He's had some pretty high yardage games here as of recently, but we already talked about Darnold a little bit in my quarterback dilemma. I like Darnold. I think he's a top 8 option here this week. Again, last time they matched up, he had 21 points. Caleb, he had 26 points. So I think Caleb's as an option here as well. Probably a top 15 option there for me. I'd start him over Anthony Richardson. I think he's just a little bit safer, but I think he's about that tier, like a really high-end quarterback 2. But yeah, right about there. Aaron Jones, you're starting him up. I think he's a top 20 option. Swift, he's like a middling running back 3. Again, we've talked about him. Not a great matchup. And you're hoping for a touchdown. You're hoping for a big play. Swift can do that. We've seen him over and over and over again. He's got 9 carries for 8 yards, and then his 10th carry goes for 45 and a touchdown. So we've seen that happen. Not necessarily saying you have to move away from Swift, but Sincere McCormick, like I'd go that option over Swift. I'm not happy about it, but I'd go that way. That's where you're starting opportunity more than you are the name, because the Swift is a big name. Justin Jefferson, obviously you're starting him. I'm going to say you can start him with some confidence. People are going to be like, well, last time he played against the Bears, I mentioned Darnold having a 21-point game. That did not come on the back of Justin Jefferson. That came on the back of Jordan Addison. That was another big game by Jordan Addison. Jefferson, worst game of the season against the Bears in Week 12. Looking for a bounce back. It's not like a historic thing. I looked at back of past times they've faced off. It's not a historic type game where that's been something there. Addison, he's a solid wide receiver too. You're going to play him. He just had his best game of his career. A ton of volatility. He's still another guy who can go out there and get you a 5-point game, but you want the big games, and you have to play him every single game if you want the big games. So you're not hoping for a 3 touchdown. Well, you're hoping for a 3 touchdown performance, but I don't think you could bank on that happening.
Kind of the big play magic that Tank Dell had with C.J. Stroud last year is what we're seeing here as like a super second fiddle in the passing game for Addison, Justin Jefferson. I mean, the guy has a nose for the football, especially in man coverage. I mean, God, trying to cover this guy one-on-one for more than a few seconds is nightmarish. The Vikings with Darnold, they've got a little bit of lightning in the bottle here. If you think Darnold is going to have a good game, I think you're fundamentally saying Addison will too. I think you're saying he's going to find him for, a 40, 50-yard type play at some point, and it might wind up in the end zone. So take that as you will.
I like that. On the Bears side of the ball, DJ Moore is my Bears running back one, and then Odunze, Keenan Allen, probably about the same tier. You could pick your poison. I think the thing we've learned with the Bears is one person will eat, sometimes two, but never three.
Yeah.
And so it's a gamble with the other two. It's even a gamble with DJ Moore. Like there can be weeks where it'll be Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen, these could be his last games here as a Bear, so maybe they want to see a little bit more of what they have out of Rome Odunze. I think they know what they have. It was evident there last week with his nice toe tapping touchdown. Right. He had a pair of touchdowns, and then DJ Moore's there long term. So maybe they kind of go that way. But yeah. DJ Moore's at the top of my list. I assume he is on yours too.
Oh yeah, I mean they're all great players. Where obviously the offense is still deep in the wilderness trying to find themselves. But yeah, Moore eats at the head of the table.
He does. TJ Hawkinson, he's a top 6 option for me. Hoping for a touchdown, but still having a little bit of yardage. Could be a Hawkinson type game too. Another one where it's really hard for all three of those guys to eat, despite Darnold kind of balling out here recently. And then Cole Kmet, he's an athletic tight end, which I think he got a dud last week, but another person who could eat into that Caleb Williams pie. While the Bears have been better, I think the Vikings defense is still one you could fire up confidently. The Bears don't scare me. Swift doesn't scare me. The receivers kind of do, and that's where the Vikings can get beat. But Caleb can also make rookie mistakes. So the Vikings, I think, are certainly still in play here on Monday Night Football.
We had Caleb Williams pie at Thanksgiving. It was not very good. I can't recommend it. Too much nail polish for my taste, personally.
Oh,
it was
gotcha.
Kind of ruined the meal. All right, on to the second leg of the Monday night marathon of football.
You got some bad games. You got Cowboys, Panthers, and you get Falcons, Raiders.
Oh, boy, tough eating. It's like eating a Caleb Williams pie, I tell you. It's tough eating. All right, Falcons at Raiders, going to the desert. The Falcons are only 4-point favorites in a game with an implied point total of 44. Ritter me this, Colt, if I can be the Riddler for a moment. Ritter me this. Who will start for the Las Vegas Raiders? Answer, who cares? Who cares, folks? Yeah. It's going to be bad either way. You've either got a badly hobbled Aiden O'Connell, who practically had to be backboarded off the field last week before he's like, no, I'm okay. Don't bench me behind Cooper Rush on the Birmingham Stallions next year, please. Yeah. I want to play football.
Are you putting the air cast on? Yeah, coach said put it on. It's not even broke. I'm looking at it. I can walk on it. We're like, putting the air cast on.
No, you're dead.
We need Ritter in.
You're dead.
This is a Ritter revenge game.
It is. This is the Ritter revenge game. So when Minshew went down, we started to think like, oh boy, Ritter revenge game could be on tap on football in a couple weeks, and then Aiden O'Connell came out of nowhere and threw water on that. But now he's down, so we're back on, folks.
We're back.
So yeah, I mean, we'll get to Brock Bowers and what other relevant Raiders there are in a bit, but yeah, you're not starting either of those quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins. And also, we don't know who the guy is going to be. It looks like it's probably going to be Ritter, but it's Monday night. O'Connell could get cleared last second. It's just a deep bone bruise. So, yeah, I mean, if you were going near this for some god-awful reason, because Darnold did just torch the Falcons, don't. Kirk Cousins. Now, Kirk Cousins is, let's be real, like it's been really, really, really bad last few weeks. But Cousins is still probably a top 16 play here, but obviously a terrifying one. I'm not saying you do it or even that you want to do it, but let's be real. He's been disastrous of late, but it's also a sequence he went the Broncos, Chargers, and Vikings in his last 3 matchups. That's going to make a lot of quarterbacks look bad, okay? Those are 3 good to great defenses in a row, so that's rough. And now he gets the Raiders, the Raiders are the get-right spot, if ever there was one, to help the Falcons stop the bleeding. The Raiders have held opposing defenses under 27 offensive points a whopping 1 time since Week 7. Okay, that was the Chiefs in the one of the Chiefs' many controversial walk-off wins this season. So Cousins should get right here, and he better. I mean, he sure as hell better. Raheem Morris is running out of shields. He can't be a human shield for this guy forever. If he goes out there and stinks it up against the Raiders, we got a real problem. He might, but I'm tentatively thinking he at least gives you like 2-2.
I got a question for you. Who has more fantasy points since Week 11?
Oh,
Who has more fantasy points since Week 11?
Oh, no.
Kirk Cousins or Tommy Tremble?
No! Don't do Tremble to me.
It is Tommy Tremble, and he did not play in Week 11.
I knew it was going to be so bad.
Kirk Cousins' fantasy points over the last 4 games.
Okay.
8, 3, 1, 9.
Okay.
Tommy Tremble has 17 points in his last 3 games.
How are you going to do Kirk Cousins dirty like that? You're jealous of the Coles cash. That's what it is. You're a Coles man, and you're jealous that you're never going to catch him on the leaderboard.
I won't.
Okay.
I won't. And I think he's going to be able to spend a lot of that Coles cash here this offseason.
Here's the thing. Put Tommy Tremble on him. That was good. Here's the thing. Cousins doesn't run. News alert. He's not a mobile quarterback. I don't know if anybody knew that. Doesn't run.
He has more rushing yards than Tommy Tremble, though. I will tell you that.
Are you sure?
I might have to confirm that.
Anyway, Cousins does not run. News alert. So when he stops throwing touchdowns and is only throwing picks, it's going to get really bad fantasy-wise really fast. That is what has happened in the last couple weeks. That combined with the echo chamber of, pardon my take type of hand-wringing over, what have the Falcons done giving this guy his money? We're probably jumping the gun on the pronouncing time of death on Kirk Cousins just a little bit. It's understandable. He can't move. He looks terrible right now. Aaron Rodgers also tore his Achilles last year, and Aaron Rodgers is dead. But so let's slow down a beat. I mean, sorry, let's slow it down a beat. Cousins probably is fine here. 235, 2 touchdowns and a pick. That's totally doable here. Do you want that in the fantasy playoffs? Probably not. But is he going to single-handedly kill the whole offense? No, I don't buy that this week. Bijan, he's top 5 option. Obviously, he's right on the verge of joining like the Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs. I'm putting him up there now.
Tyler Algier needs to get off the team before he can be in that tier, but he's very, very, very close.
He's very close. That's well said. Perfectly said. Sincere McCormick. All right, are you ready? Are you ready for the heat?
Man.
Are you ready for some heat? McCormick
Okay.
is a top 15 play at running back in the year of our Lord, the week of our Lord, week 15 of the 2024 season. Top 15, okay? McCormick has looked pretty darn good the last 2 weeks for a team that desperate. So the point I made earlier about the Chargers, which I know dead on, the Chargers want to run the ball so badly if only somebody would grow a pulse and let them do it. That's the Raiders too. Maybe even more so because the Chargers at least have a quarterback. The Raiders obviously do not, and they certainly don't this week. They need so desperately to have a running back that is a true difference maker with the ball in his hands. They may have just stumbled back asswards into one with McCormick. I mean, he's been fantastic relative to the guys that he is replacing in Zamir White and Alexander Madison. For the Raiders to have a chance in this game, they have to get the ball out of either Desmond Ritter's hands or an injured Aiden O'Connell's. They have to. I think McCormick could blow up. I think he could have over 100 yards from scrimmage. I think he could have a touchdown. This could be in Monday Night Football. He's not from Las Vegas, but from Long Beach, California. Yes, I checked his Wikipedia page. He could have family in the stands. McCormick blow-up game against the reeling Falcons. I'm putting it down. I'm throwing down the gauntlet. The Raiders buried the Chargers this time last year, got Staley canned. They could do something similar here against the Falcons. Okay, they're not going to score 63, but
I'm not quite there with top 15, but top 24. I'm very, very close. But I do agree with you. He's a very good play this week. Reminds me remnants of Zamir White last season. Did absolutely nothing his rookie season. Did absolutely nothing basically this whole season. Zamir White at the end of the season, half PPR fantasy points, 16, 14, 13, 12. Like he was basically non-existent in the passing game. There was one game where he had five receptions for 35 yards, but McCormick, I mean, he's on that trajectory, and it was right at the end of the season where Zamir White got the nod. He's already, Sincere McCormick's already got the nod here. Antonio Pierce saying on Wednesday he will start on Monday, so we know he's a starter. Whether Amendola's out there, or Alexander Madison's out there, I don't think it's full scold. I think this is a matchup where you want to try to get him into your lineup. So if you got the Breece Hall injury, you got Kenneth Walker, you didn't get Zach Charbonnet, yeah, fire Sincere McCormick up for sure.
McCormick in your flex spot Monday night could win you your matchup. He really could.
He could.
Like it would not surprise me at all. He really could. The spot, it's as close to the stars aligning as it's going to get for any Raiders running back anytime soon. So yeah, I like to play a lot. Drake London top 12. You can't quit on the targets this guy's getting. Like I know Kirk's been rough, but 12 a week over the last month, you can't walk away from that. He's a top 12 play. Darnell Mooney, I'll say, is top 20. He only needs 127 yards here to crack 1,000 for the season, and the Raiders secondary isn't as embarrassing as the rest of the operation, so it's not a great draw, but it's not intimidating either. Because it's Kirk Cousins and he's a volume merchant, I will throw out, kind of like with Wandale earlier, in desperation scenarios in full PPR leagues, Ray McCloud is a top 45 option. Very risky, but he could give you like 7 grabs for 58 yards, no touchdown, which in full PPR is very relevant. Addison, I've got something on Jordan Addison here, but that's the wrong game. Moving on. Brock Bowers at tight end is the top 1 option at tight end this week, I'm going to go ahead and say. And then on the Falcons side, like I said, I've had enough. I think the Falcons have had enough. I think they have left the light on for this guy way too long because of the draft capital, and he was the prince that was promised at the tight end position for so long, and it's just not happening. And it's time. It's time to move on. So if you're starting Pitts this week, you must know something we don't, because everything that we've seen for weeks and weeks and months and years now suggests you should not be doing that. So Godspeed, cadet.
Yeah, it totally flip-flopped the season. He started off slow, then had a resurgence in the middle of the season. Everybody's like, hey, let me start him. Had a down game. Oh, I started him through that. But, I'll go off the history. Another down game. That down game since. He should be down on not necessarily waivers, but probably so, actually.
Maybe Monday night we're going to find out that Desmond Ridder was actually really good, and that was all Pitts' fault. Maybe. No, we're not. Never mind. No, we're not.
No, we're probably not. Do you think there's any incentive for Kyle Pitts to be like, Brock Bowers is a really good tight end, I want to show off in front of him? He could try. I don't know if he has the ability to do it, though.
If Pitts went to Georgia, then I might think he has that dog in him. But Pitts went to Florida.
He got that gator in him.
So I think that's a crock.
Yeah. I like that.
All right. Well, we did it. We have wrapped up our Week 14 rundown for you. Hopefully, we gave you that nugget, that kernel, that little bit of advice that's going to put you over the top, that's going to give you that feeling in your stomach of, okay, that was what I needed. I've got this. I'm going to go kick the crap out of Brian from accounting now in the first round of the playoffs. If you still have questions, if you need a little extra something, don't be a stranger, folks. This is not the time of year for it. Get in the comments of this podcast video on the YouTube or on the Fantasy Index website, where the podcast will also be posted. You can get it at us on Twitter. Colt is at _Colt Williams. I am at DLuke87. Send us a carrier pigeon, whatever you got to do to get some insights and input into your dilemmas. It's the time. Don't be a stranger. Come holler at us, and we will be back with you next week. Hopefully, you're still in it. You should be, but if you get knocked out, we'll still be here for you. If you get knocked out, you can come tell us about what Tim Hightower did for your fantasy team way back when. We'll swap stories. It'll be fun. All right, Colt, what do you say? Next same bat time, same bat channel next week?
I love it.
Let's run it back. All right, guys, get that W like Jameis Winston always says. We will see you next week.
See you then.
This has been the Fantasy Index Podcast. For more great content, premium rankings, and cheat sheets, head over to fantasyindex.com.